From the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are excited to have our mom support coach here, our author, our cheerleader, Alysia Lyons, joining us here again today to talk more about, guilt, mom guilt, and really how sneaky, how dangerous this all could be. Of course, let's not forget her book and how she's helping so many people all over the world. Based out of Fresno, California. Welcome back today. How are you?
Thanks so much. I'm having a fabulous morning.
Oh, great. How was your weekend? Was it good? Anything exciting?
It was good because I had somebody come over and deep clean my house. It was amazing. I've never had somebody deep clean before, so it's like every room I'm like, oh, it sparkles.
Ooh.
So it's like a nice little treat.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being here and to talk more about your coaching services. You as an author. So just tell us a little bit about Mom Support Coach in general and what it is you do.
Yeah, so I help moms really just release the guilt that they're feeling because it's not something that serves us in the long run. Mm-hmm. Guilt is just a notification to let us know that we need to tweak some stuff.
Yeah.
And then I help them increase their peace because there's 5 areas of our life that I feel like have the ability to contribute to increasing or decreasing our peace. And so what I help clients understand is that regardless of the external situation, you can still have inner peace. So that's what I kind of help.
Beautiful.
Work on.
And how can we find you?
My website is momsupportcorner.com or AlysiaLyons.com. It kind of redirects there either way. So.
I know we're going to talk more about guilt today, mom guilt. But first of all, just tell me about your book, too. That's so important.
Absolutely. So my book is called Good Mom Rules, Ditch Mom Guilt and Find Your Happy, because we all have these unconscious rules that we live by that help us understand or guide us into what a good mom does. And so we'll have a rule like a good mom stays at home with our kids, but we're not staying at home with our kids because we either enjoy our job or we need to work. And so then that creates this guilt because this situation. So some things we need to tweak the belief on and other things we need to tweak the behavior. So it just depends on what it is exactly. And my book goes through there's probably 14 different rules that I noticed were the most popular, so I interviewed probably 100 different moms.
Of course. Oh my gosh.
What's going on in your world? And I just kept hearing guilt everywhere because I had just released this mom guilt of my own and felt so much better. I was like, moms need to experience this. So,
well, thank you. How can we find the book? And
yeah, so you could go to my website, AlysiaLyons.com/books with an S. You can also go on Amazon. You can search for Alysia Lyons. And as an author, you can look for Good Mom Rules and my name, or just keep digging until you find it.
All right. Well, let's talk about guilt today, right? What exactly is mom guilt? Could you break that down for us? And let's dive deeper into that.
Yeah. So I came up with this notification thing because I was driving my husband's car one day. It was one of those fancy cars that can tell what's around you and it notifies you if you're about to hit something, right? And so somebody was pulling in front of me and at the last second, and so the car kind of freaked out and went beep, 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 beep. And I yelled at the car. I said, it's not my fault. They pulled in front of me. And my husband was like, it's not an accusation. It's just a notification. And I was like, that's what guilt is. It's not this punishment that we have to carry around, especially mom guilt, right? It's not something that we just have to live with. Now we've done something wrong, and I'm using air quotes if you're not watching, but we've done something wrong, right? We've done something wrong, and now we need to suffer for the rest of our life. Right? Like that, isn't that what it feels like? Like there's nothing we can do about certain things. There's nothing we can do about the past at all, except for the way that we look at it. So that was my story. So I had had a situation where a babysitter was not appropriate with my son. And I went through all the legal side where I was going to get justice for him, right? So he filed a police report. I filed child protective services reports because in my mind, something also happened to this little girl that she was inappropriate with my son. And but they lied. Thank you. I appreciate it. And we're all good, but they lied about it. And so it didn't go anywhere. And so I then decided, like, all unconsciously, that's the sneaky part about it. It wasn't conscious. And so I then started blaming myself, not only that it happened, but that I wasn't able to get justice. And so I didn't recognize it for about 2 years until I got into coaching, where I had hired a coach for a different reason. And we were digging into some stuff, and I was becoming aware of my behaviors and my emotions. And I recognized that I was feeling guilty about this. I didn't even know what it was. I was just like, I told my coach, I think I feel guilty about something. Yeah. And so we dug into it. It felt like 80 pounds. I always used to say 50 pounds. Now it's 80 pounds of weight just lifted off my shoulder. And I was like, every mom needs to release this as soon as I started seeing it everywhere. And then I had I was way more comfortable writing than I was speaking at that time. And that's how the book came about. So I was like, I need people to know what's in my head, and it's not coming out of my mouth. So it's going to come out on the page.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing your personal story with us. And I know that must not be easy. And the fact you're helping so many people now with this, could you share some other examples of mom guilt and what we as moms experience? And of course, then how can you help with this?
Yeah. So, like I said, it's a notification. So the first thing is noticing that you have it. Like, you can't get rid of it if you don't know that you have it. And so it kind of feels like, I'm such a bad mom, or I should have done this differently, or I should have done this better. I should be doing this. Like, so moms will feel guilty because they're not on the field trip. They'll feel guilty because they're not baking the cookies, right?
Yep.
And I felt guilty for my son's a picky eater, and it's like that must be my fault because I didn't cook in the time between this time and this time. And so I was comparing myself to my sister-in-law or other moms, right? Yep. And so and it's like, well, I actually was talking to a mom this weekend about picky eaters, and she goes, oh no, there's nothing you can do to stop that. And I was like, oh, that makes me actually feel a little bit better, that it's not 100% my fault just because I didn't enjoy cooking.
So true. So true.
So those are some things. Like, we feel guilty about you can name it, and somebody somewhere feels guilty about it. If you think that you should be doing it, you're going to feel guilty about it. So moms are out there, and they, especially with social media, I don't think that social media helps. But we'll see that other moms are making the cookies, and they're sewing clothes. And like, I didn't ever have a desire to sew my son's clothes. So
I can't even sew a button, but I know.
And like, I don't feel guilty about that because I didn't have a desire to. But if your mom sewed all your clothes and you have a good memory and a good association with that, and you're unable to do it because of whatever reasons, that's something that you might feel guilty about. So we look at how we were raised, and depending on how we feel about how we were raised, good, bad, or indifferent, that's the things. If we're doing those things that we shouldn't be doing, or we're not doing things that we should be doing, those are the things that cause guilt. Yeah,
but I had open school night just the other night, and I see all these parents, not all, but it was like 6 of them signing up to be the class parent. I'm like, wish I could be a class parent. I'm like, I don't have that type of schedule. I'm like, you get that mom guilt, but I want to be there. I want to be on that trip. Like, you just totally hit home with that. And, we have sports every week and 3 nights a week. And oh my gosh, I have to work tonight, so I can't be at the practice. I feel so guilty. Like, I feel I'm being judged. You feel all of that.
Yeah. Especially you hit a nail on the head is the judgment is also something that contributes to the mom guilt. And my invitation is to look at, are you committed to looking like a good mom to other moms, or are you committed to being a
Being a
good
good
mom?
mom. Yeah.
Right. So other people, that's, who cares? That's their opinion of what you should be doing. Well, this
Yep.
is your life. These are
Yep.
your children. Right. So what you could do if you're feeling bad about that, I recognized that my son does not care if I go to his school event where he's being honored for his grades. He doesn't care.
Oh,
But I rearranged my schedule so that I could go, and then after the fact, he's like, yeah, it doesn't, I mean, it's fine if you don't want to go, like, or if you can't go. It doesn't bother me. And I was like, oh,
really?
okay.
Like, okay, wow. Okay, yeah. Good idea.
Yeah. So sometimes we think that things are important to our kids and they're really not. And if it is really important and you still can't do it, then we can have a different conversation with our kid is like, well, what can we do together that does make you happy? So I had another mom who, because she was working, she completely missed her kindergartner's jogathon. And the
Oh,
first one is like the best
I
one.
know.
And so she thought that it was going to last longer than it did. So she said, I'm going to miss the beginning, but I'll be
Be there
there
for
at
the
the end.
end. Oh,
But it was so short and our meeting went longer than she expected. So she missed it. And I said, well, why don't we talk to your daughter, or have a sit down with your daughter and explain what happened and say, how can I make it up to you? So my client's instinct was to buy her daughter ice cream to make it up to her. And I said, instead of buying her ice cream, ask her what she wants. What would happen? What would make her feel better?
yeah.
And you know what her daughter came up with? It was the best thing. They made a fun run in the backyard and they did it together.
Oh my
And that's
gosh.
what made her daughter feel better.
Wow. See?
Right?
That's a good
Yeah.
idea. I never thought about asking them how they feel. We may feel guilty, but they might not. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. See, like it just opens up like this world of, oh, I don't have to, like, they don't care. They don't know. They don't know all the stuff that we know
Yeah.
that we could be doing that we're not.
So true. Wow. All right. This is good
Right.
stuff. Well, what else do you tell these parents out there that are in need of help with their mom guilt?
Oh gosh. Have compassion for the things that you've done that you can't change. I couldn't change what happened with the babysitter. I make different choices now. I absolutely make different choices, and I've done a lot of healing around it so that I make sure that I'm not making trauma informed
Yeah.
decisions, because a trauma informed decision would be like, nobody ever is going to watch my kid but me.
True.
Right? Like that's a trauma
How could you
informed
trust again?
decision.
You're right. Yeah.
Right. And I did that for a long time. So there were select people that I trusted. And if you did anything that I thought you shouldn't have done, you are now out of the circle of trust. And I recognized that, like, that was hard for me. And so I still have, my son's older now, so we don't need babysitters as often. And they are usually family when we do have them watch them. But, or people that have watched him in the past that I make sure I'm like, how do you like this person? Or he'll ask, like, can I go see so-and-so? One of his babysitters works at the local water park. And so we see her all the time when we go to the water park. And so he'll say, oh, can I go over to her house still? So I know that like they have a good connection and that she's a good person. So it's there's a fine balance between the trauma response and trusting your intuition. So I really help moms get back to trusting their own intuition, because I think that's the most precious gift that we have as moms. It's our internal GPS.
That is so true. But you may not always have it. So what we need to do to, better ourselves in a sense and to get rid of this mom guilt. Now, does it work? Can you have mom guilt forever? Like, is it just when the kids are younger to teenagers, or is it always? Are you finding moms that are dealing with this as their kids are even older, like in college?
Yeah, one of my my life coach is a dad, and he, as soon as his daughter turned 18, he started saying, what could I have done better in her life? So he had, like, in the moment he didn't have guilt, but he was starting to have retroactive guilt. And so he, is a coach himself and kind of coached himself through it. But he said, if I'm beating myself up for the things that I did wrong, that means that I'm saying she's not right as she is. Because everything I did turned her into who she is. True. Or that she is who she is because of how my wife and I parented her. Right. And so he took and that is hard too when we're talking about our children who have drug addictions and, have harder situations happening in their life. But so, yeah, it is something that once your kid turns 18, it's not like you turn it off. It just depends on, we got to train our brain to not look for what we did wrong.
So true.
And I have a much higher perspective that everything that happens in our life is for our highest good.
Yeah.
So whatever happens, so my son doesn't like needles, and we had to do a blood draw, and it was traumatic for both of us.
Yeah.
And we ended up going to like Valley Children's Hospital, where they actually work with children. So shout out to Valley Children's, because they're amazing. Right. And the phlebotomist there, she became a phlebotomist for children because of her experience as a kid.
Of being scared of the needle, right?
Of being scared of needles. And she was phenomenal with him. And he's like, we are going to see Lori forever. Like, I need to get my blood drawn, that's who I'm going to. And I was like, I will call ahead and make sure Lori's working, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do anything to help our kids. I get it. And just want to point out, there's some great testimonials on the site. Nicole R says, Alysia coached me on some past inflicted guilt issues about how I parented my kids while in an active addiction to drugs and alcohol. She's amazing. And let me ask you about that example. If you can elaborate on her testimonial. So there's even times where, as a parent, some people are indulging in other things besides giving their kids, obviously that attention that they need. Could you share a little bit more about her story and how she, I guess, obviously overcame all of this?
Yeah. So she did get in trouble legally, and so her daughter had to be in custody with with the father, and so that did create a distance between them. Her daughter was very holding on to some anger towards her mom.
Yeah.
And after she served her time, she had another baby. She had a son, and her son, at the time that I was coaching her, was eight years old, I want to say. And this daughter had come back into her life, and she was feeling so great about that. But the daughter's anger towards her mother was being taken out on the son.
Yeah.
And on this half brother of hers. And so she was feeling guilty because she understood that that's where it was coming from. Yep. But she's like, how do I tell this daughter that I completely wronged to treat her brother better when I don't have any right because of how things went down in our lives.
Yeah.
So it was hard. And I said, well, you do. Because you have to forgive yourself first. Yep. For what happens, and you got to set boundaries with your daughter and your son, because your responsibility now, your daughter's an adult, and your responsibility now is to raise your son. And it's not okay to allow your daughter to treat your son poorly just because your daughter's angry at you, right? So we have some healing to do between mother and daughter, so that she can stop taking it out on the son. Yeah.
Well, normally how long does it take to work with someone as a mom support coach to get through this? And I'm sure it's different for everyone, but do you see like an approximate amount of time? And walk us through the process. Is it a weekly meeting? Is it twice a week? Or how do we usually do these coaching sessions?
Yeah, so obviously it depends on the person, but I do two different coaching packages. So I'll do a six session package or a 12 session package, and you can use those sessions however you need them. I do prefer weekly, but a lot of people will do every other week, so it'll be an hour-long session, and we most women come to me with a thing. Right. So I'm feeling this thing, or I'm overwhelmed, or even this is what my kid is doing. How do I get my kid to stop? And it's like, well, it starts with us. And I'll just give another story because it's on my heart. But a friend of mine, their house burned down, and she has two little kids, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. And she's still, this happened a month ago, so she's still feeling the trauma herself. But she's focused on, I don't want my kids to feel the trauma. And I said, the most important thing that you can do is to heal your trauma, because our kids they're watching the show. They're not listening to the lecture.
I know.
So it's all about and that's a beautiful thing, because you can control what you do. You don't control what anybody else does. You can control you. So I do a lot of focus on, how do you feel? How are you reacting in this situation? How can you change your energy or your behavior and see what happens with them? Because when we start acting different, people start responding to us differently.
Well, also, there's someone talking about your ability as a coach, talking about you're amazing. You have a passion only for helping people, but understanding them on a deep level. This is Angela B., and your specialty is working with mothers to help them overcome guilt. Yet she also has this amazing ability to help anyone in any situation. So these coaching sessions prove vital, obviously, to not just the mom in us, but in the person in us, right? And there's another person, Christy, that you helped with the fear of speaking her truth. She didn't understand why she was so scared to be in the situation she was, and she started to shut down. She talks about your being so compassionate and patient with her, and locating in the body where she was feeling a block, which was the throat, right? We talked about this one, I think, last time, which is awesome, because there's people that need to release certain things. So you as a coach, are you coaching others too, not just for mom guilt, or in general?
Yeah, my passion is mom guilt and increasing the peace, but I really can work with just about anyone, about just about anything. Because we're all, if you get deep enough, we're all the same at the roots. Human behavior is human behavior, regardless of, race, creed, ethnicity, whatever. We have similar experiences. We have similar responses. I don't know if you ever saw that movie or that TV show. I think it was called Lie to Me. And they have the universal, is such a good show. It only lasted like a season. I was so sad. But there's universal expressions that humans make. So contempt always looks the same, and anger always looks the same. So it's the same with how a traumatized human responds. So we have big T trauma and we have little t trauma. And big T trauma is stuff that you would think of as trauma. How we label in society, how we label trauma is the big T stuff, right? But the little t trauma is, my dad didn't hug me when I wanted a hug, right? Or he said something that hurt my feelings because of the energy that he said it with. And then we didn't have a conversation. So I had a lot of little t trauma in my life that made me behave the way that I behaved and moved me towards this type of man and that type of man. And so human behavior is always the same.
Yeah.
Like we always, like if we got hurt because we expressed an emotion and somebody said, I'll give you something to cry about.
Huh.
Right?
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
I think everybody over 35 has heard that phrase.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we hear that, then we're like, okay, I'm not allowed to cry. So then we try to stop crying. Well, emotions don't stop happening because we're human.
Mm-hmm.
So we look at different ways of how can we stop feeling the emotion. So some people have this kind of addiction or that kind of addiction. So we all kind of respond in similar ways. The details are a little bit different, but we all kind of respond in the same in the same way. If that makes sense. So
totally does. Yep.
Yeah, I'm super into people and emotions and why we do the things that we do. And so that's why I believe that I could actually help anyone with anything.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. That perfectly sums up our session for today. My goodness, it goes so fast, but we are out of time. Let's remind people how we can reach out to you for that initial consultation, please.
Absolutely. So momsupportcorner.com is my website. It redirects to my name, which has a different spelling. So momsupportcorner.com is the easiest way to find it. And then if you go on to the website, there's a peace assessment, and we will walk you through where you're at. Because when you plug in your GPS, it needs to know two things. Where are you going and where are you? So that's what we try to figure out is where are you?
Well, thank you. Always a pleasure having you here. Alysia Lyons. Don't forget that's ALYSIALYONS.com. Check her out as a mom support coach. And it's always great talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing more about guilt and your own personal story here with us and how you're helping other parents get through their own guilt. And the book. Tell us the title of the book again.
The title of the book is Good Mom Rules, Ditch Mom Guilt and Find Your Happy.
Beautiful. Thank you again. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Absolutely, you too.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.